Hello. What are you at? A good day. How you doing? Welcome to Tales with TR episode 219A. I'm your host, Terry Ryan Jr., coming at you from beautiful Sudbury, Ontario, home of the Sudbury Blueberry Bulldogs. And the Blueberry Bulldogs have a big day of filming ahead of them today, that's for sure. So I'm getting this in before I take off. Thanks so much to Brent Sopel. Wow. The last couple of weeks, we've had, I didn't realize how many people listen that are, often generally, I'm not going to say in need of help. What's the word? That can identify with some of the people that come on here, like, and talk about their experiences. And someone like Brent, who has faced adversity, to say the least, talk about adversity. And then, to see people identify and people that I know and love, and even if I don't know you, you listen to this podcast, you're a weekly listener, I feel some sort of connection. Anyway, it's nice to see. And when I say people I know and love, I mean two people in my direct family. Don't want to give their names out. Well, direct, my family, I guess. I'm an only child, so direct. Would that be just my mom and dad? So two of the three of us? No, what I mean is that I've had friends, family, like more so than I think maybe since I had Corey Hirsch on. A lot of people reached out then as well. But what I'm saying is that some people very, very close to me called or texted immediately after listening to that. So it was a good connector to many of you. And I know that a lot more of you that I'm not really, I don't know you personally, but received messages through Twitter or social media or whatever. And that's awesome that Brent could do that. And I'm glad I had him on. I had him on because it's my buddy Soaps from Junior, and I knew he had a decent message, and I like to get that out there. But sometimes I'm reminded of just how important it is to have people with such an identifiable, clear message to relay. It's important to get those people on. And many kill two birds with one stone. Okay, here we go. So I do know, a lot of people complain. I talk about the Oilers a lot because I'm on the Gregor show twice a week, right? And I pay attention there, and there's a lot happening. And I talk about the Leafs a lot. Well, I'm in Ontario right now. A lot of the hockey world in Canada, hockey-centric, revolves around Toronto. The Canadian teams in general. But, in Edmonton, just having been to the final. And like I said, working on Gregor's show. So I often don't talk about the Habs, the very team I played for. But it's not out of, in recent years, I'm not going to say they're not as relevant. They totally are. But as far as, they've been rebuilding more than anything. I mean, has anybody really expected anything from them since they made the Stanley Cup final in the pandemic? And again, how many teams make the final and have their two rock stars, Price, Weber, pretty much retire? Well, not pretty much. Retire after that run, right? These are their oldest grizzled vets that are Hall of Fame guys, and to have two of them removed from your team when you were a bit of an underdog story anyway is hard for anybody. But in the last few years, the Canadians are more about rebuilding, right? So the Canadians fans I interact with tend to be all over the world. Like my time in Montreal, I have friends there and acquaintances that I still see here and there. But it's not like we're always talking Habs. Like, if I talk with friends from Edmonton, we often talk Habs. Or, sorry, like Oilers. Or, most people at home that are Leafs fans, I mean, the topic comes up in the first minute. I guess sort of with the Habs. But people from actual, like Montreal that I know, right? They might have an opinion on the Habs, but I find a lot of the diehards come from all over the world. A lot of people are addicted to the Canadians' culture, their heritage, some of their legends. I got into them by, I think the first player I ever really heard of was Rocket Richard through that old cartoon, The Sweater, I think it's called, number 9. Check that out. It's an old like Canadian heritage cartoon that used to come on like in between TV shows. It was only like 5 or 10 minutes long. Anyway, those are my earliest memories. Habs, and then they won the Cup in '86. I guess I was 9. My heroes became Bob Gainey and Chris Nyland and Larry Robinson and guys like that. But anyway, and having played there, I'm going to make a point this year to try to get to more and more Habs questions is the point that I'm trying to fucking make. I didn't even need to say that. I've been getting some complaints, and who knows what I'm going to talk about, right? I'm sure that, tuning into this, it's going to be, some would say disorganized. I would say curiously suspenseful. Anyway, okay, so the Patrick Laine, a lot of you had those questions. Patrick Laine. So he goes to the Habs, right? It was for Jordan Harris, D-man. Okay, so Jordan Harris played 10 games in 21-22, but the last couple of years has played 65 and 56 games respectively. 17 points, 14 points, 26 penalty minutes, 22 penalty minutes. A decent up-and-coming defenseman on a team that gave him a chance because of their situation in that they were rebuilding. And I think Harris was a big part of that. Judging on comments in the media world and what I saw with my own eyes watching, I think he's a pretty good young player. That withstanding, that's not really what I'm not so much into the comparison as I'm saying, okay, you're asking me here, would I have made this trade? Now, the answer is no. Before I get into it, I will say this. Patrick Laine, I hope, proves me wrong and he gets 50 goals this year. I'm not one of these people that I've learned over the years not to have stupid, stubborn pride. And there are things about Patrick Laine that annoy me. To see someone with so much talent sometimes play as if they don't give a fuck. But therefore, like, we're starting at a point here that subjectively I'm looking at it, I'm biased against him because I've never really liked certain things about him, which I'll get into now. But that being said, there are certain things I do like. I like that he's a little bit, what's the word, boisterous? Not, he wears some loud suits. He's fairly confident. And if you harness that energy the right way, it's a good thing. Fairly confident is good. Cocky and alienating your teammates isn't. And it's a fine line that you're treading there. And for the most part, he seems, when things are going well, he's enjoying life. He seems to be a good teammate, interesting guy. Okay. But there's been many times over the years that you would question him being a good teammate, just in the comments that he's made to the media, with that some that we don't even know that happens in a dressing room. But anyway, it seems that disagreements and disenchantment or cynicism follows him around. Now, let's just get into the bare bones of this. The Habs just traded for Laine. I think he becomes their highest paid player. Okay, and he did. He came out. Remember when people were saying like Laine or Matthews, is he going to be as good as McDavid? All these things for good reason. I mean, he could really snipe. He can really snipe. I shouldn't say it like it's past tense. Came into the league, took it by storm. I believe first couple of years were his biggest. 38 goals, I think maybe 44 the next year, whatever it was. And he showed some real signs, right? Coming in, he had nothing to lose. He's in a good mood. But I find when this guy, now, I get ahead of myself. Yeah. That was 2016, 17, 18. We're talking more than half a decade ago. And since then, there's been a decline. You might say, Terry, but there's a reason for that. Injuries, bad coaches or teammates. Maybe you agree with him. I don't know. And maybe you're right. How do I know? Right? Maybe the joke's on me. And Patrick Laine really has had 3 or 4 coaches, owners, GMs, whatever it is, teammates that, unfortunately, luck of the draw, he's been right every time. I don't think that's the case. So in my mind, you've got a guy that numerous times over the year has either demanded a trade, blamed other people for his lack of success. I mean, short-term success, because he's a successful player, obviously. I mean, if he has a bad game, if he has a bad playoff, if he goes in a slump for 4 or 5 games, the odds are Patrick Laine is going to blame somebody else, right? Can we agree on that? The odds are when an adverse situation happens to Patrick Laine, the hockey player, he'll blame other people or he'll ask to get traded. Okay? I think I can say that objectively. I think I can say that as fact. Now, knowing that he tends to shuffle the blame to somebody else and knowing that his best years, even though they were young, and he's in his body, his physical body is entering its renaissance in its time here on this earth, right? So if he got those goals at 18 and 19 years old, I'm sure he can do it now. He can probably get more. I'm not doubting that, okay? Just want to preface it with that. And again, I hope the motherfucker gets 80. I really, really, really do. I like to be proven wrong when it comes to these things. It gives me joy because I was a player and I know what it fucking feels like to want to go out there and succeed. And when you finally do, whether it's team, personal, whatever, it feels really fucking good. And I'd rather people feel really good. Part of my brotherhood too, NHL alumni. hockey player, good human, compassionate human. I mean, there's things I like about the guy. I'm just telling you right now, if I'm running the Montreal Canadiens, why I don't make this deal. So you got that. He's got a history of complaining, let's just say. Those big years, again, were more than half a decade ago. Okay. Now, last season, I think he broke his clavicle, but he hurt himself in December. Then when he was ready to come back, he took time off to enter the league's offered program, to deal with his some mental issues. And everybody tends to have them here and there, I think. Maybe not everybody, but I hate to fucking generalize, but you know what I'm saying. I can identify. There was definitely times in my career that I could have used and should have used a day or two or a week. I don't know about months, but definitely a week. That I was going through some things, concussions, injuries, frustration, signing for all this money and expectation and not being able to deliver right away and wanting to. There are things I totally identify with, and that's why I hope the motherfucker comes out of it and gets fucking 50, like I said, 80. So in December that happened, then he took time off. Look, I know, and every time, if I'm not down on anybody for needing the mental assistance or whatever, right? But it's a fact it did happen. So if I'm trading for him, just like a broken arm. Is it going to happen again? And maybe I'm wrong because I don't know from Patrick. Maybe there are other things, but it seems it often revolves around hockey. At least the things he says, the way he alienates teammates, brass over the years. You got to lead. Is it a chicken or an egg? Sometimes is your mental adversity because you say these things, and then it can't be easy to put pressure on yourself when you're admitting you're going to avail of the help that maybe a mental or a therapist, I'm not sure. For me, it was a therapist named Wayne Hollowell. I'm not sure who he deals with. It's none of my business. But it's public knowledge that he went in there to get help. I really hope he gets it and has gotten it. But that doesn't exclude him from being a cancer in those other situations. I don't know. Who have I said on here is fucking, really gets under my skin as a player and almost a person. Say Sean Avery, but again, I don't know him. But just things that he's done publicly lead me to believe that I don't like the guy, and I don't think I'd like him if I got to know him personally. But I could be wrong. And if he came out now with a major, say, look, people, this is why I was acting like this, setback that would be understandable. Oh, that's why you went. Well, I would have more compassion for him or anybody else that said that. I'm just using him as an example. But it doesn't exclude the fact that you still did all that shit. In Sean Avery's case, you still made the sloppy seconds comment about Dion Phaneuf, part of your NHL brotherhood. You still did that, right? You still did. You just look up, I don't know, anything you want to. He's made some donkey moves. But again, I don't want it to be about Sean Avery. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying, I hope you're understanding, is that, yes, you might have gone to address the problem that happened in your head, but it doesn't exclude these things that you've already done in the NHL. It doesn't exclude the fact that you called out so-and-so after a game. It doesn't exclude the fact that you demanded a trade when you were the one acting like a spoiled brat. It doesn't exclude the fact that you've called out teammates and owners in the paper and you maybe haven't been fully honest, right? So that's what I'm saying. Of all the compassion in the world, and I hope his head gets into a place where it should be, but this guy, clear-headed, unclear, whatever, has made some decisions that make you question his ability to sacrifice and do what's right for the team, okay? Now, so there's that stuff. Knowing all of that, now he's going to the Montreal Canadiens. Again, I'm not trying to speak from experience. I know I should have and could have done better there, but I didn't really get off the ground enough to have real pressure on me. I kind of did at camp a little bit. You're a first round pick. Of course, I get that. But he's going to go there with he's becoming the highest paid player on the team, first of all. And we don't even know if he can get through the year. Should he be the highest paid? Do you think he should get more than Nick Suzuki? Or I don't fucking know, Caulfield or whoever, go down the lineup. So, and I'm not whatever. I'm sure those guys are fine with their salaries. They're making millions of dollars. But he's going to come in. What do you think is going to happen in Montreal when he goes 11 games without scoring a goal? Because it's going to happen at some point. And I know Martin St. Louis on the site, Marty St. Louis might be just the perfect coach for him, and that's a possibility, given the way he's worked with young players in the past. It's been brilliant. Slavkovsky and Caulfield, look at where they were and what happened and their development. It's been fucking brilliant. So if anybody can do it, Marty St. Louis can, I believe. But still a skeptic, because there's going to be times that Laine is very, very challenged. And if you think Winnipeg and Columbus was hard on the head. Holy fuck. Montreal, if nothing else, man. Every paper, some of those paper, La Presse, Le Journal de Montréal. Oh my God. You got like fucking 40 pages of Habs in there each day. I'm not shitting you. And of course, the Gazette, right? I mean, I read the Gazette more because I'm English, but the Gazette is one thing, but the French press, it's fucking madness. The national, the international, all that. And again, I was there learning from the older guys, like my role. So I'm not trying to say this from a first round pick. Oh my God, it was so hard there. But Patrick Laine's situation is going to be different. I watched Shane Corson, Vinny Damphousse, Saku Koivu, Pierre Turgeon, all these guys that were in the limelight, Mark Recchi, and they handled it really well, or else they wouldn't have been given the captain or assistant captains or whatever it is. But I just also know that all of the above were in any kind of minor slump, then fucking they were like 10 minutes away from being booed on the ice and fucking the paper ripping them up. And especially if you don't try hard. If the reason for that slump is lack of effort, they will fucking snap, man. Ask Jonathan Drouin or lots of players, but he's the most recent that I know that, they'll turn on you one thing, but if you're not giving an effort or they don't see that you're giving a full effort, they'll really turn on you. And Laine is one of those guys that often is inconsistent with his effort. They'll throw Brendan Gallagher a fucking bone because if he doesn't score, he's going to do something. He's going to draw a penalty. He's going to block a shot. He's going to notice. He's going to be noticed. He's going to run the fucking goalie or something. But Patrick Laine, as far as I know, is not going to do that. So Patrick Laine in a slump, I don't think is good news for anybody in what might come out of his mouth and his actions. And I'm just going on past history. Again, I think we can agree that he's often shuffled the blame onto somebody else, right? When he doesn't often look inward and accept it, the responsibility, I mean. Now, hopefully he's grown, and people do. I mean, we're talking about a guy that had all those goals as a teenager. So that can do something to your psyche, too. Maybe I'm Superman here. Maybe I'm bigger and badder than I fucking think I am. Or not as big and bad as I think I am. Or whatever it is. For me, I've probably formed that side of my personality that, we're always learning. But, from 21 to 29 for me was two totally different people with two worldviews that were differently. Everything from sports opinions to the way I treated my body, dietary, mentally, politically, my opinions, my knowledge of history, my opinions on music, arts, politics, they all changed, right? So that could be happening here too. And I know that Montreal Canadiens, there's a lot of pressure, but there are people there. Like if anybody can get him on track off the ice, I think they can. Now, but I'm still a skeptic. Finally, all of these things combined, okay, so he hasn't matched his numbers from a teenager yet, and that was over a half a decade ago. Okay, he's got a history of complaining. He missed a lot of time with injuries and mental, if you want to call that, whatever you want to say. He missed a lot of time on the IR. Now, we talked about slumping. How's he going to react if that happens? Hopefully it doesn't, like I said, but if that happens. Now, here's the final reason. Because of all of that, because the history of, again, complaining maybe, and because of the contract, what if he goes there and he complains and he's not scoring and then people look around and say he's making the most on the team or close to? I think it's the most, but it's close to, just using my mental memory of this situation. I mean, I could be specific. I don't have the fucking time, and you're not tuning into this to be specific, but I know he's going to be one of the top players on the team or paid players on the team. That could cause a little bit of tension. And I don't know, outside of that, even if it doesn't, I don't know that I want the possibility of a guy who's already been a cancer twice on teams that he was in, cancer metaphorically, but you know what I mean. Do I want that around my young kids that are rebuilding? And they seem to be great young kids. I know Alex Newhook's a buddy of mine, and I don't know any other. I mean, there's lots that probably put the same amount of time in, but Alex works his fucking nuts off. It's a perfect mix of hard work and payoff. He likes to hang out with the boys, maybe have a beer, not get stupid, works every goddamn day. You hear me talk about Ryan Power conditioning? Well, I mean, that's his number one client. And Alex is there working out all summer, like real hard fucking workouts, 2 days. puts himself through that. He'll do whatever it takes to make it. And I think a lot of the other players on the Canadiens are like-minded. And I think they like those players for that reason. I mean, think about all those guys. I just mentioned Slafkovsky, Caulfield, Suzuki. Look at Jacky. Like, right down the list. These guys are young, determined players that I think are part of a rebuild that will be successful. Successful in that they're going to have a chance. If the Habs were to make the playoffs within the next 2 or 3 years and make the second round, I consider that a success looking from where they're coming from, and you build off that. Anyway, do I want a guy who's possibly, we don't know, maybe he'll be great, but possibly going to influence your young players that are so full of piss and vinegar and positive energy and optimism? I don't know. Now, those are my reasons that I wouldn't have done it. You could sit here and tell me probably the same amount of reasons that you would have, and I think it'd be fair. I mean, a fair argument. It's probably the flip of a coin. I think just the way I played and the way I looked at players who came in with that chip on their shoulder with an attitude, I fucking hated it. Maybe I wasn't always as open-minded to bring them to my side instead of kind of join theirs, but I always liked to be, the team was my team, and anybody came in that might divide that, I would be very protective of that. So that's where my nature comes from as a player saying this about Laine. The other thing is that this guy can put the puck in the net. You're a Habs fan. You want to talk right shot forwards? Let's talk Michael Ryder, right? My buddy from Newfoundland. Rides could fucking snipe. Laine can snipe and is 6'5", like 220, right? It's still physics. It's still a small rink out there. And you get a big presence like that, even if he doesn't go around running people, it's just hard to mark him. It's hard in front of the net. Even people said he doesn't go to the front of the net. Now, you end up there, though. You end up there. He might not go there as much as John Tavares or fucking Joe Pavelski or whatever, but he does go there. Look at the highlights. I looked at him, right? His big payoff, even in those big years, was that one-timer on the side or the power play getting open and just finding a hole. But, I mean, he does go to the front of the net, and it's hard. Even if it's a 2-on-1, and you got, like, it doesn't always have to be crazy traffic. I just find it hard to mark guys that are 6'5", 220. Being a guy that's almost 6'1", 195 pounds. I found that really hard. You know, if he does have a good attitude, if you could guarantee me of that, I think that's the biggest thing. If I could be goddamn guaranteed that his attitude would stay on the up and up, I'd do it in a heartbeat. Because the upside is that you're going to have a superstar, not a star, a superstar. But I just can't, I don't know that. Now, people on the inside probably do. Maybe he did have an epiphany. You know, if you talk to a guy, you could be convinced, and maybe I'm wrong. All of these opinions that us fans, I played there, yeah, but I'm still just a fan right now. That's all I am. I'm reading what you're reading in the paper. I'm watching what you're watching on TV, right? But someone is on the inside. Someone has been talking to him, and, you know, maybe he said, you know what, listen, I fucked up the last few years. I'm really ready to do it. And they looked at him and said, Patrick, you know, what do you think? I don't want to put goals. I don't want to put expectations, Marty. I just want to come up there and I want to play for you, right? I'm going to set a goal at 15. I'm going to try to get 15 goals. From there, I'll set 20. From there, I'll go 25. Hopefully, I can get 40. Hopefully, I can get 50. But I'm going to do everything I can to go in your locker room and be back to the player that I once was. I promise you. Maybe he said that. And if you're sitting with someone and they're convincing enough, and maybe for good reason, maybe he will. Right? I'm speculating based on past shit, and that's all any of us can do. And the Canadiens right now are dealing with present Patrick Laine. Now, again, played for the fucking Habs. I want a Canadian team to win. I'm a Habs fan. I'm a huge Alex Newhook fan, my buddy who plays there, like I said. So I want the motherfucking guy to do well. I really do. But I can't sit here and lie to you about what I would have done in the situation. I'm not a head coach in the NHL. I'm not a GM. I'm not an owner. Thank fuck, because I'm not talented enough in either capacity to be a responsible coach, GM, owner, whatever the fuck. And that'll never happen, but I'm just speculating. But I hope he does well. Yeah, I just wouldn't have done it. That's that. Listen, I want to say this. My daughter, Penny Lane. Okay, look, the summer games, the Newfoundland and Labrador summer games took place last week in Newfoundland. I know I kind of mentioned this, but I really, really want to stress something here. First of all, I don't know who's listening. I don't know. I'm sure there's people that know people or know people in one of the provincial governments or whatever. But look, I understand why the Olympics are every 4 years. I really do. but it's an adult thing. Now, there are kids that take place. Of course, there's teenagers, just like I just mentioned, Patrick Laine. There are gymnasts that participate at 13 and 14 years old, but it's still whoever can make it. It's an adult open competition, right? So you have more than one chance to take part. But I really do think now Penny Lane and this team, Mount Pearl South, they were a bit of an underdog in that they had mostly first-year players. And it reminded me, I said, so Penny Lane and a bunch of her friends made it. They're very hard workers. I'll get to that in a second. And it's great that they did. And it's even better that they won. But it's like, it was ironic too, because her summer games were the same place mine were, in Bay Roberts, Newfoundland, close to the home of Danny Cleary. And Dawson Mercer, actually, it is the home of Dawson Mercer. So I remember, and I'm born in 77. It was a 76 group, but I snuck on like she did because, myself and a few of my buddies were the elite athletes of our age group. So we could go and play 1 year up, just like she did. But I feel bad for the kids that are a year younger than her, and even worse for the kids that are 2 years younger than her, because they'll never get to play in a provincial summer games. So look, I've said this for years. I really think the provincial games should be every 2 years, maybe even every 3, but include more. It sucks not being involved, right? It sucks. Same thing for the winter games. I remember I didn't get a chance. It was a year younger than me. So the only way I could play the winter games is if I made the team 3 years older than me, right? So like these guys were 16 and I was 12 turning 13. So how? Not even. Yeah, they were turning 17. So it wasn't even a possibility that I make it. And then the next time it happened was a year younger than me. So that was Danny Cleary and Harold Druken and Keith Delaney and a bunch more great Newfoundland players. My roommate, I was playing in Tri-City at the time, Zenith Kormaniski went. But I remember going, fuck, man, I didn't get a chance at the Winter Games. And I just hate how just timing and age eliminates some people from that. So really, if you're in any position, if you're in some sport, provincial setup, committee, whatever, please take into consideration. I'm starting with Newfoundland, but take into consideration summer games, winter games, they're all fun anyway. It's going to make some community some money. Everybody's going to go. They all go out. Penny Lane and them stayed in a school, in a classroom, in a cot. They get a chance to, that might seem like a little bit of a sacrifice to you or me, but for kids, it's part of the camaraderie. It's part of the learning to be a team. And that's why you sacrifice for each other, because you're growing up together. And really, I think more kids should have the opportunity. So let's smarten up and have provincial summer and winter games much more frequently. If not every 2 years, every 3. But every 4 is eliminating most kids from the opportunity to represent their city or their section of their province in something that means so much. And I know that these girls I'm about to mention worked so goddamn hard. A lot of them, they play. Penny Lane's club team is Mount Pearl in the provincial league. And then she plays on the provincial team. It's called NLSA, Newfoundland Soccer Association. And on top of all that, right, in a year of the summer games, which was this year, they have a tryout in the late winter, early spring. And they have that tryout, and then they go from there. So the name of her team in this was Mount Pearl South, which basically it's an area that's bigger than Mount Pearl, if you can believe it. It's just an area of Newfoundland. There's 6 areas. They divide it, right? I believe it's Labrador, then Western, Central, and then Avalon being the most population. There's 3 or 4 teams divided. So St. John's, with the biggest population, is who they beat in the final. And like I said, it was a bit of an upset because Mount Pearl, not lacking in population, but we had mostly first years that made the team. I don't think anybody going in the tournament was expecting Penny Lane's team to win it. Definitely compete and didn't really hugely surprise anybody, but it definitely was a bit of a surprise. But anyway, that's the way it works. And so it was a bunch of different. So her club team is Mount Pearl, but this included Mount Pearl, Paradise, Southern Shore. There's a bunch, etc. There's a bunch of areas represented. So just to make the team was one thing, and that they went through and won after a long summer as well. A lot of these girls have played together. At least 7 or 8 girls on Penny Lane's team were actually from the Mount Pearl Club team she plays on. Most of them were first years, like I said. And then I'm just going to announce the names of the girls on the team because they deserve it. I watched them work hard. And anyway, it's Penny Lane Ryan. Congrats, girls. Mount Pearl South champions of the 2024 Newfoundland Summer Games held in Bay Roberts. It's Penny Lane Ryan, Paige Andrews, Lila Donovan, Peyton Harnham, Claire Gibbons, Ella Heffernan, Peyton Williams, Sophia Waddleton, Kate Turpin, Allie Young, Chloe Clark, Lily Slaney, Rachel Chalk, Miley Tapper, Allie Lethbridge, and last but not least, coaches Alan Young, Brooke Andrews, who treated them just awesome, and they had wicked practices right from tryouts. These girls were dialed in. Tracy Reardon, their manager, everything, the organization, from the uniforms to the bus to the travel to the setup to the games to the supplies on the bench to the diet, everything. I really appreciate everything you guys did as far as the coaches and the manager, treasurers, whatever, everybody that had something to do with it behind the scenes. Helped create an awesome memory for my daughter and her friends, and something they'll never forget. I know that from experience. So thank you, and congrats to all you girls. I'm going to give you a little side congrats here. The girls from Mount Pearl: Penny Lane, Paige Andrews, Lila Donovan, Peyton Harnham, Claire Gibbons, Ella Heffernan, and Peyton Williams. And I should have mentioned Aaliyah Philpott, who didn't get to play, but she was also an alternate on the team, and she was a first year. I want to mention Johnny Andrews, who's Paige's father, who has been their coach for most of it, and even from the time they were 4 or 5 years old, since they started just going up. And I remember Penny Lane was picking flowers during the first game of soccer. She had absolutely no interest, but she met the girls. She became friends, and because of their friendship, they kept going to the field together. And she developed a liking for soccer and then a love for it. And if it wasn't for Johnny, who was coaching all those teams, and Timbits or whatever it's called, and under 8 and under 9 and under 10, and Johnny actually had the under 12 team a couple of years ago, and he actually took 5 or 6 of the girls and cut his daughter Paige, who's, like I said, she was on this team. She's a great player, good defender, awesome goalie, can play multiple positions. And Johnny didn't feel she had a great camp, and he didn't want to set a bad example. So for the vast majority of the year, Paige played on the lower team, and Penny Lane and 4 or 5 and he easily could have picked her, easily. But, he's an objective guy, and he loves soccer, and he just felt that she needed to improve a little bit, and she did. And now I don't think she's been cut from a team since. But I'm just telling you what kind of a guy this guy is. I don't talk about him much. He's a friend. He's definitely not just a coach, but like a mentor to Penny Lane. And he's probably a big reason that at least those Mount Pearl girls, at least the first year ones, which is most of every girl I mentioned other than Ella, at least I know from my perspective that Penny Lane, the biggest reason that she is still playing and is so interested and moderately successful at the sport is because of those girls I mentioned, and because of Johnny Andrews, the glue that kept most of them together for all that time. There are other people, of course. I could say Rudy Norman. I could say Phil Malloy. I could say Andrew Murphy. I could say Andrew Moist. There's all kinds of people that have coached her over the years and are awesome. Mike Oliver this year, awesome. But I'm just telling you that over the years, Johnny has really developed an innate desire, focus, and determination in these girls because of his and now their love for the game. Thank you, girls. It's been an awesome ride. It killed me not to see you succeed, but I'm right here. We all watched it. We had highlights and snippets from the game up on my phone. We're watching all the cast and crew. And from all the Sudbury Blueberry Bulldogs, congrats. And I'll see you guys when I get home. Penny Lane, congrats. I love you. And you worked real hard. We're going to go see Pitbull real soon, as promised. Love you again. See you soon. Folks, if you're downtown St. John's, you want to go for a beer, you want to go for a bite to eat, maybe you don't drink, maybe you just want to have a coffee, you want to have a Diet Pepsi, you want to sit back and take in one of the coolest, oldest, most historic cities in all of North America, and I'll say all of the world, St. John's, Newfoundland. You know where I'd go? I'd go to Trinity Pub, TJ's Pub, Rob Roy Confusion, Martini Bar, Greensleeves Pub, or the Bull and Barrel, of course. If I wanted to go for a bite to eat, I would go to Blue on Water, Loose Tie, or Wedgwood Cafe. If I wanted to go work out, I would go to Power Conditioning on Rope Walk Lane. Strength and balance for the body and mind. If I wanted to go to Mr. Lube, there's 2 locations in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador, Torbay Road, Cameron Road, Live, Laugh, Lube. If I wanted pain relief, I would go to pitbullpainrelief.com and I would see what all the fuss was about. True Hockey, take what's yours. Folks, I'll be back in just a couple of days with more Tales with TR. And lastly, thanks to Brent Sopel, my guest for the last couple of episodes. People really responded. He really connected with people, and I love to be the conduit that helps to make that happen. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back in just a couple of days. I'll catch you guys on the rebound. See you later. I'm out of here.